And now we are with our guest of today's podcast, episode 189, Ryan Mullen with FS Houses. What's up, Ryan?
How's it going, Brett?
I'm doing fantastic, man. I'm great to see you again. We've got to hang out a couple times in the last month. So
Yeah, definitely. The meetup was awesome. When was that? Maybe a month ago. That was great.
yeah, definitely. Check that out if you're listening in. We host a meetup on the fourth Wednesday of the month in Indianapolis, and Ryan was on one of our panels, and he gave some amazing nuggets there. And I'd love to see you back there, Ryan. But today we're really just going to talk about you. You were on an earlier episode with your wife, Ashley. It was episode 76, and you kind of took us through your journey. You talked about working with your wife and how amazing that was and the challenges that brought and how you got started in real estate investing. So if one of our listening audience, go check out episode 76, Ryan and Ashley. It's a very entertaining episode as well. But 16 years, man, you bought your first house in 2003 and you've been doing this a long time. You've seen some shifts, some changes, and just kind of bring us up to speed. If someone hasn't listened to the first episode, take us a little bit where you came from and bring us up to today.
Okay. Like you said, 2003, I wound up in a neighborhood called Fountain Square, which is, I can't say enough about that neighborhood. It's, it's really taught me a lot. And that's the name FS Houses comes from Fountain Square. That's where our office is now. My mom actually helped me buy a house when I was young. I was like 22 years old. And back then, Fountain Square was dirt cheap. And we actually, we weren't savvy at all. We probably paid retail or maybe even slightly above retail for this house. $50,000 house. Mortgage payment was probably like, $375 or something like that. And so I had a couple of roommates paying $250 each to rent a room, and I was essentially living for free. And that, that's the start of my investing career and what made something in my head click and say, how can we collect more rent? How can we do this on a bigger scale? And I always tell everybody, like, I went down the same path of reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad and books like that and wound up here.
That's awesome, man. So we were talking about your age before the show. You said you were 38 now. So I'm trying to calculate the math. I was a math teacher. So 38 minus 16, you're around 22 years of age, bought that first house, renting it out to roommates and living for free. So when I was 22, I didn't even know what I was going to do the Friday night, right? I was, chomping at the bit, figuring out what I was going to do, but you were actually already investing, and that's awesome. So you've been doing this a long time. And like I said, we've heard a lot of your story. You started FS Houses, and you guys have a lot of things going on with FS Houses, and I wouldn't do it justice. And I don't even remember all the things you have going on. But tell us about what FS Houses, what do you guys represent, and who are you in the Indianapolis community?
So FS Houses is, first and foremost, it's a real estate brokerage, meaning we handle all types of transactions for third-party clients and ourselves, representing buyers, representing sellers, listing houses, showing houses. But we also have, which is very important, we also have a property management company that not only manages the properties that we own, but it manages the properties that that we help our clients buy, and in general, just kind of is the the wheelhouse for taking care of everything, really, in terms of maintenance, rent collection, construction. So the management aspect of our brokerage is definitely kind of the engine that keeps the wheels turning, I would say. Mm-hmm. And we do, like I said, we have our own, buy and hold properties. We do retail flips to homeowners. We sell properties turnkey to investors, mostly out of state. And then we also will help acquire and manage properties for, you know, people that want to find them through wholesalers or, you know, through the MLS or, you know, for sale by owner. You know, it could be anything. So
Definitely. So FS Houses, you have a brokerage, which thank you. I know you guys have brokerage and personally have bought many houses from our company. We love working with you guys. You have a property management company, so you help vet tenants, manage your own turnkey properties that you've sold and or manage tenants. And I love your property management company because we've worked with you a little bit and you guys are really serious about it, number one, and you don't just take on any client, number two, and you vet your tenants very well, put some good tenants in place. So that's awesome. And you've also done a lot of buy and hold properties, and you've done a lot of retail flips. So out of all those, which one does Ryan Mullen enjoy the most? What do you get really excited and jacked about when you wake up and have your cup of coffee?
Honestly, it's the acquisitions. My favorite thing to do is go look at deals, especially when we have internal money that we can spend, whether it be an entity that's just my wife and I, or, maybe it's an entity that, my wife's dad has one, for example, that, they give us free reign to buy what we think is a good deal. We go out and do that. And that's definitely, to me, the best part of my job. It's my favorite thing to do. I like to go look at houses and just kind of, buy a house because I think it's a good deal, and maybe I have something creative in mind, or usually it's a deal that I see value in that a lot of people don't, and so I like to go after those, maybe one-off deals that the majority of people wouldn't probably buy.
Mm-hmm. So you love getting out in the trenches, looking at houses, analyzing the deals, and I hear you're also very creative, and think you're an artist as well. You got that creative mind. So who does the designs? Because I've seen some of your guys' flips, FS houses, and they are wickedly amazing. There's always some very interesting focal point. It could be the fireplace. It could be, the old brick coming out of the middle of the floor somewhere in the house. I don't know, but the colors. But who does all that? Do you kind of come up with some of that creative? Is that an outlet for you?
Well, so typically the way it works is I'll go look at a house and buy it. and then I come to Ashley, my wife, and hey, we closed on this house. We need to rehab it. Here's what I was thinking, right? And then I'll lay out kind of, let's take out this wall, or let's, change the layout a little bit like this. Let's do that. And then Ashley will say, yeah, those are good ideas, but no, that's not going to be pragmatic. That's not going to work. She's the detail person. She's the one that has to deal with the contractors and the construction and stuff. So yeah, I give I paint a canvas and deliver that to her, and then she decides what colors are going to stay, what colors are going to go, and how to change the composition, that sort of thing. Yeah. So she's definitely the driving force behind the design elements of our flips, and she definitely relies on the contractors a lot too to help her with those things too, because we've got some killer guys that work for us, rehabbing houses and doing the construction, so we rely on them a lot too.
So she puts the stop order in on
yeah.
it. Yeah, I have some of that as well. Some of mine aren't really with the houses, but I have this new girl named Rachel, and she does a lot of our social media stuff. And if you haven't met Rachel Haney, please, she does a lot of our social media. Reach out to her on our Facebook group and all that. But I don't know. That was just so funny because I had Brian, who's our CEO, Brian Snyder, who's also the co-host of the podcast. His birthday was coming up. So I was like, hey, Rachel, and I'm not very good at ideas and stuff like that. So I said, hey, can you come up with a birthday gift for Brian? And she sends back, she's like, hey, I got it. Let's do this. I think Brian really wants to go skydiving. So we all should go skydiving. And the, people who don't want to, they can record the videos and do this huge party and we'll go out afterwards. And I'm like, hey, I was thinking like a gift card, like a local restaurant or something. Let's just tame it down a little bit. But it's kind of the same way. Ashley puts some of the stop orders on that, and that's awesome. But you guys have an amazing product, and you also have an amazing reputation here in Indy, and a lot of it comes with a lot of challenges too, because you work with a lot of out-of-state investors, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So people coming into Indy, they either want a turnkey property, and a lot of times turnkey buyers, they have high expectations, or someone who maybe wants help with finding an area in Indy or a flip in Indy, or whatever that looks like. And you've been able to maintain this high reputation working with a lot of investors, but a lot of the out-of-state investors, I want you to talk to them right now. So people, from all over the nation that you're working with here in Indy, what attracts people to Indianapolis? I guess, number one, why do you think it's one of, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, maybe you don't think it's one of the hottest markets in the nation, but why do you think it's such a hot market for out-of-state investors?
Well, I think it boils down to the price point, really, which is kind of a function of the general cost of living here. I think at the end of the day, what it boils down to, and I've thought about this quite a bit, like, for example, I think it's a geographical thing, right? Which is why our prices are so low. We don't have a river, we have the White River, but that's not doing much. But we don't have mountains or rivers or an ocean or the Great Lakes to restrain the space that we can take up, right? Mm-hmm. Indianapolis, and then extending out to the suburbs. The joke is that you can always cut down some cornfields and build a subdivision if there's more housing needed, right? So we have so much room to grow. We could literally keep it going past Hamilton County, past Johnson County, and keep our metropolis growing without really coming into an obstacle like the mountains or a big river or something like that restrains us. So I think it's a simple supply and demand thing where our housing is cheap. With that being said, that's why I like downtown Indy, is because there is a lot of demand to be downtown Indy. We have a lot of things going on, and that is what kind of keeps our prices increasing. And the rental rates are increasing downtown. The price of housing in general is increasing. So I like to kind of get in where things are hot and appreciating and making good money. So that's kind of my philosophy on why Indy is a hotbed for investors coming here.
Yeah, I think it's got so much to offer, like you said. Number one, you can grow, turning cornfields into houses, which Indianapolis and the surrounding areas has perfected.
Yeah,
we are. That is like our deal, right? We take
right.
a cornfield and turn it into to a couple hundred house subdivision. So we got that going for us, and even the price points for these cookie cutter types of subdivision houses is really reasonable. People can get that 1% rule typically for a house like that, renting for $1,200 to $1,500 a month, something like
Mm-hmm.
that. And, you're paying anywhere from $130,000 to $180,000 for houses like that. So that's awesome. But we also have a lot of hot spots downtown, and I see more and more hot spots popping up. And you probably know a lot more than I do about those particular areas. But we've seen, obviously, Fountain Square is one that we've seen grow so much. But there's some other hotspots as well. Like, talk to the local people that are interested in investing in Indy. What are some other areas that FS Houses is interested in?
So lately, I've been thinking a lot about the West Side, because FS Houses in particular historically has been the Southeast side and the Near East side. But there's been a lot of activity. There's been a lot of development going on in the near west side. And so some of my favorite neighborhoods right now that I'm really looking in and looking to expand in is west of Meridian, up by the Children's Museum. So like, let's just say like 30th and Illinois, Capitol, Kenwood, that area.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's been, you know, the Children's Museum itself has expanded, Ivy Tech has expanded, and there's just been a lot of nice developments going on around there. I think that's one place to focus on where, it, you know, 5-10 years ago, I would have, you know, told you avoid that like the plague. And then also there's a neighborhood called Rhodius Park, and I've made a couple videos and put some things on Facebook and you know, YouTube and stuff like that, where I'm just saying, hey, Rhodius Park, it's an interesting neighborhood. If there's any wholesalers out there with deals around, send them to me, right? And since then, we've acquired 3 houses, well, 3 buildings, one of which is a duplex in Rhodius Park. And one of them we actually got from you guys, which we're going to start rehabbing here soon. But it's on the west side, southwest side. It's a little known neighborhood. Nobody talks about it, but it has this amazing park that's probably like a 10-acre park with a swimming pool for the public, all kinds of things to do, activities for kids. You know, there's a non-for-profit that kind of oversees a lot of you know, activities and cleanups and stuff like that for the park, and just kind of focusing on the area. We like to see that sort of thing. And for me, it's nothing that's going to happen overnight. It's not going to be like, you know, buy a house here and then gentrification is going to happen and we're all going to get rich.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a real long-term play. The neighborhood has always been good, you know, good for cash flow, very affordable. There's a lot of $30,000 and $40,000 houses floating around. There's inventory to be had. So to me, that makes a good investing environment. There's also some commercial stuff going on over there that could one day be very desirable. You know, there's a music recording studio that I know about. There's some dive bars. There's some little niche restaurants, you know, taco joints and stuff like that. Once people figure it out and kind of get on board, I think it could take off pretty.
Yeah, definitely. I think I lost you. So that's awesome. I mean, it sounds like you really know Indianapolis and you really know the areas because you're very detailed. You're not like, oh, you know, I'm picking Rhodius Park or West Side because I saw some comps. You're like really talking about the bars and the swimming pool and the park, and that's awesome. I think that's why out-of-state investors really enjoy working with you. And what do you think the reason is that they're out-of-state investors are gravitated towards your company? Is it because trustworthiness, you do what you say, you're really looking out for their best interests, where other companies might say whatever people want to hear? What do you think it is that separates you guys working with out-of-state investors versus some of the other turnkey companies or even wholesalers out there, I guess?
Well, there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of individuals and companies in Indy that do a great job. I think with FS Houses, I guess I would probably say that we're very careful. We don't push the envelope in terms of like doing a ton of business just to be doing it and just to be making the money. We like to, when we work with an investor, we like to keep things conservative and be very, very, very cautious and just kind of not overdo things and not, you know, not try to. We don't need to do 50 deals a month. You know, we're happy doing, you know, 4 or 5. So with that in mind, we just try our best not to make mistakes and you know, little crucial things like, for example, if a tenant is on the fence with being approved, Ashley is probably going to going to deny them versus just putting them in the property just to fill the vacancy, right? So little things like that, I think add up over time. And there's nothing special about our company. We're not doing anything, particularly like innovative or crazy. It's just, I guess it's just experience and being careful and being able to sleep at night knowing that our investors have a safe investing environment,
Yeah, definitely. I think it just goes back to trust, doing what you say, and really knowing the areas. And you guys are really on the up. I mean, probably out of all the investors in Indianapolis, I feel like you guys are on the up, breaking ground of, what's coming up. I think you study different areas and what you think is a great area that's going to become hot and towards downtown Indy. You're very strategic, I think, and
Definitely.
you're not just flying by the seat and just doing whatever. So I think that speaks volumes. And I know before the show, you talked a little bit about this BRRRR strategy, and that's kind of a hot topic right now. The BRRRR strategy, which I don't even know what all the R's mean. It's like buy, rehab, rent, and rinse and repeat. Is that what it is?
But buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat.
I forgot to
rinse and repeat.
I forgot to refinance that part. So that's why I'm always out of money. But so that's the BRRRR strategy. Someone buys a house, they rent it. Actually, they rehab it, rent it, and then refinance it with a bank, and then repeat that process. So they can keep their cash flow kind of coming in. So what are you seeing? A lot of investors are interested in this, and you've been doing this with some investors. So what are the great things about this that you're seeing in the Indianapolis market, but what are some of the challenges that you're also finding out? And, you're like, I don't know if this is the best thing for you, I guess.
Well, the cool part about it is that you can recycle your money over and over. That's obviously the attractive part. And I think that's why so many people are drawn to it, which on our side as kind of the property and service provider, for us, it's cool because I can, get a house under contract or buy a house or find one on the MLS and go to our investors and say, hey, this property needs, maybe 15,000 in work. The ARV is going to be X, and you'll be all into it for 70% of X. So in theory, you can refinance out, get all your money back, and do another property. Obviously, that helps us sell more properties. It turns our money over faster because we're not, doing the full rehab up front. We're doing that on, our clients' time and money.
Mm-hmm.
So we're able to turn properties over faster and sell more deals. That's the cool part about it. But I guess from a, just to, like I was saying about us being cautious and careful and being more on the conservative side of investing, I want to just kind of point out and warn people about the effects of over leveraging, because I think that if you single out the BRRRR method as your way of doing business and your business model, and that's what you do, to me that just doing that seems very scary because it's a tool to have in your arsenal, and if you do it on a property here and there, that's awesome. But if that's all you're doing, to me it seems like you're stretching yourself too thin financially. Mm-hmm. And that's not always the case, of course, but from what I've been seeing on the forums on the internet and the threads on Facebook and the general consensus of not just investors in general, but kind of the out-of-state group specifically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think there's always danger with over-leveraging yourself. And I feel like everybody's personal situation is a little bit different. And you might not know everything, but if you're really, really relying on, number one, the rent check to pay that mortgage payment, or if you're really relying on the furnace not to go out because you can't afford that, you're probably stretched a little bit too thin.
Exactly.
So I feel like that if you're going to be an investor, just do it really smart. Is there a smart way you feel like that someone can really do that strategy? Maybe they don't do it for every house. Maybe they don't over leverage themselves with 70 to 80% of the appraised value. Maybe it's less percentage than that.
Yeah, and I think that just like any article you read or any method that you learn about, any it could be a book that somebody's written or a thread on Bigger Pockets, but I think that you should take those strategies and those tools and just kind of use them as one strategy and one tool. Like buying turnkey, like I'm not going to come on here and say that everybody should buy every property turnkey, because I don't believe that either. In the same way, I don't think that you should have the BRRRR method as the one and only way that you invest.
Yeah.
I think there's more opportunity out there to do, just not a wide mix of things. Like everybody should have kind of their niche, but yeah, I just don't believe in only doing one, method of real estate. Like even if you're just wholesaling and that's your niche, right? You can like you guys do, you can do all kinds of different ways of wholesaling. There's JV deals. There's, like buying it, taking it down, putting it on the MLS. And even within that, there's multiple exit strategies that I could go into.
Yeah.
So they're just diversifying your arsenal, I guess, is what I'm preaching here.
Yeah, definitely. And some of the things I see, some people really are all about passive income. And I think that's great. I think it's great to build cash flow, but it's very important to have some active income. And do you see that's why you guys do some flips here and there? You have some rentals just to pump some money back into the passive, right?
Yeah, exactly. And even if we had, there's really no such thing as passive real estate for Ryan Mullen, because I wake up every day and go to work, and this is my active and passive. It's one and the same. But even if we just had a bunch of buy and hold properties and we didn't have to deal with the day to day, I would still need something to do, right? I would still need to, actively do something. So
yeah,
I think you're right. I think it's important to have kind of a good mix of passive and what am I going to do on a day-to-day basis, for sure. So
definitely. So we've talked about kind of what FS Houses does. You work with a lot of out-of-state investors. So if you are out of state and you're listening to this podcast, I highly recommend reaching out to Ryan and Ashley or his team with FS Houses. You can check out their website. We're going to put a link in our show notes. It's going to be simplewholesaling.com/episode 189. And Ryan, before we go into the next section of the show, I want to talk about, we've known each other for a few years now, and I've seen you guys doing some different things in the past couple years, and now in the next couple years, you might be doing some different things still too. What are some of the things that you feel like that you or any investor in Indianapolis specifically should be careful of or watch out for in the next few years?
Well, I know a lot of people are, not just doing the BRRRR method, but they're also flipping. And to me, it's the same process, right? You have to buy a house with, equity in it, do the rehab, create more equity, and then you're either going to sell it or you're going to refinance out of it, right? And either way, if you're selling or refining out, that appraisal is going to be based on the comps around the property. And what I see happening right now in Indy, and I think across the country, I'm not sure, but I see a slowdown in the retail market. I think that prices I don't think there's going to be some drastic fall off like 2008 and 2009, but I do think that prices are declining. And for investors, I think that that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. And, basically the purchase price to rent ratio is going to be more in our favor, which I'm super excited about. And I guess my advice would be, to be patient, because the way I see it, the prices are declining. So there's no need to, rush into anything right now. But at the same time, always the best time to buy is right now, but there's no need to be in a rush. And I think going forward, long term, I think Indy's going to see some really good things happening in the investor market, not so much the homeowner market. So,
Yeah, I definitely agree. And it's always a great place in Indianapolis to either flip in certain markets. Obviously now it's been a great time to flip in the last several years. It's always a great cash flow market. We're always expanding, we're always building. And so I think it's just been awesome. And I think it's going to continue to be, but we have to be careful. We have to be smart. I feel like over leveraging is one thing just for everyone to keep an eye out on, because when the market does tighten, if it does slow down, that's when things can get rocky. If you're a little bit, outside of your comfort zone with the leveraging and making sure you have some, we call it dry powder or cash back to get through a certain gap of uncertainty, right?
Weather the storm.
Yeah, definitely. And then it can be obviously a great time. Many people, if you had $1 million back in 2008, you probably turned that into a lot, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So, that's awesome. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for the advice on that. And it's been great, but we're going to go in a section of the show that we like to call Going Deep. And I know last time, we talked with you and Ashley on episode 76, just about kind of the dynamic of working with your wife. And we kind of hit on that a little bit. Before the show, we talked about we're very similar ages. You're 38 and I'm 39, getting ready to turn 40. And I asked you a question because this is kind of like where I'm at. I've been actually reading this book called Halftime. It's about kind of the middle of your life and what's the second half going to look like. But I would just like to ask people around this certain age, if you could look at, the next 10 years, right? Things are going to be a lot different 10 years from now. If you have children, they might not be children anymore, right? And you might be just living a different life. So what's something in your life or, you and Ashley's life that you see for yourself personally in the next 10 years? What are maybe something you're going to focus on, something, I don't know, what's that look like?
Well, so Ashley and I have recently started the conversation of retirement. So I don't know, just the conversation, like we're not slowing down. We'll be here for forever. But we have started to have that conversation just because like you said, we're approaching, like the midlife era in our existence. Mm-hmm. And we have a daughter who just started her freshman year of high school.
That's a change.
So like you said, we're starting to think about, the
nesting.
Yeah. Well, the next 4 years of high school, and then the 4 years after that, she's going to go to college. Are we going to pay for her to go to college? Is she going to get student loans? Like, these are things that we're talking about now just to kind of be prepared. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be a really exciting time, I think, for us. And we're kind of daydreaming about 8 years from now. Lola, our daughter, is going to, she's going to be graduating from college in theory, hopefully. Mm-hmm. And so that'll be an exciting time. And there's an ungodly amount of bills and costs associated with, raising a kid. And once those are out of the way, retirement seems like way more feasible. Yeah. So for us, that's just kind of an exciting thing to start thinking about.
That's awesome.
And then we're also, Ashley and I both have parents that are retired and need passive income, and they rely on us for that too. So we have that to think about too going forward. And the next 10 years is, how are we going to take care of everybody? How is everything going to play out? And it's exciting, but it's also kind of nerve-wracking too,
Yeah. What's retirement look like? So you're talking about, What's that looking like for you, man? Like what?
For me, like you mentioned, I'm an artist. I'm not a very good artist, but it is what I enjoy doing. And I also love building small businesses. Obviously, I'm kind of a serial entrepreneur. So I want to make a little business around my art and, just kind of make an attempt at, bringing in a decent income from, painting murals and selling paintings and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it sounds crazy, but it'll happen one day.
Yeah. So personal coach asked me, and I haven't even taken the time to really do this, but so I want to ask you real quick is typically as we get older, we just we stop dreaming, right? When we were kids, we would dream of being an artist or a fireman or
Exactly.
whatever it looked like. But when we get to certain ages, we start businesses and we just stop dreaming. And even if we do start dreaming, our minds strictly go to engineering on how you're going to achieve that dream. So if I say, I want to make $1 million or whatever, I don't know, my mind goes to, how am I going to do that? I got to hire a bunch of people and, whatever. So I start to engineer it. But he said, go someplace quiet, and if everything just burned down. So I'll ask you, if there was no FS houses, no FS houses brokerage, no retail flips, no property investors that you had to manage and think about, your family could do anything that you wanted, move anywhere you wanted, and Ryan could do anything that he wanted, and your bills are paid for a significant amount of time. You don't have to worry about money and paying your bills either. What would you do?
Travel and paint. Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's something that the travel aspect of it is not just myself, but Ashley as well. I mean, if we could travel around Europe and the rest of the world, that would be ideal for us. So
that's what retirement's going to look like for you guys, huh?
I hope. I hope. As long as property management runs smooth, that we'll be able to leave.
Hey, I didn't say you don't have to worry about property management. It's just dreams, man.
That's right. Everything's gone and we're rich. So, yeah.
You sold the property management company to simple wholesaling. No, I'm just kidding. That would never happen.
For $1.4 billion.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Well, hey, thank you again for just being with us today. We're running out of time, but it's always a pleasure just hearing your heart, hearing where you guys are at. It's been such a great relationship for us over the past several years, and I wish you guys all the best. Before we end today's show, I'm going to end, just like every show, we end on a touch of randomness. So I've prepared 3 random questions for you, Ryan, and name the first thing that kind of comes to your mind on these questions. Number 1, what is the best thing before sliced bread?
Before sliced bread?
Yeah, or since sliced bread? What's the best thing in your mind? Whatever.
This is a random answer, but I think the American Railroad is just like the coolest, just most fascinating thing. It's so random, but
it's awesome.
Indy's kind of a railroad hub, and I'm a big fan of watching the trains go by, and I just think it's freaking crazy.
That's cool, man. That's awesome. Number 2, what is your favorite app? I know you're not probably a technology guy, but what's your favorite app?
Well, I like, so I have the Cash App, and not so much for like getting paid, but you can buy and sell Bitcoin on the Cash App. So I treat it like a video game, buy low, sell high, with Bitcoin. I'm not making any money, but it's just fun to do.
Just like video games, man.
Yep. Build my high score and then lose it.
That's cool. All right. Last question. This is totally a random one too, by the way, but first thing that comes to your mind, if you were given an elephant, so you have an elephant, right?
Okay.
And you can't get rid of the elephant, what would you do with the elephant?
All right. So, Ashley and I have a little, it's probably an acre of land that we acquired randomly. in Christian Park. It's not worth anything. It butts up to the railroad tracks. But I would build a giant fence. I'd put my elephant in there, and I'd have some other animals, and build ourselves a forever house and just kind of hang out with the elephant, you know, make it like a little environment that it would thrive in, and just relax and chill.
That's awesome, man. Man, I wish I had an elephant. That would be so cool. Oh, anyways, that was random. So thank you so much, Ryan Mullen, for being on the show today. Wish you so much success in the future. I want to give you one last opportunity for all the investors out there that want to invest in Indianapolis or want to just talk to you because you've been in the business for so long, 16 years, man, and talked about what it's like to run a business and grind it out every single day. Where's the best place to reach you and your team?
fshouses.com. That's our website. It has links to everything. You know, Instagram, the videos that we post. It's got links to everywhere. So
awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show. And you guys listen to this man, Ryan Mullen, his wife Ashley, their FS Houses team. Reach out to them. Go to our website at simplewholesaling.com/episode 189. That's where the show notes are going to be. And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.